You're listening to the Real Longevity Podcast, your number one podcast resource for living a longer life. Here we discuss topics on personal fitness, longevity, and real lasting elevation of mind, body, and spirit. Join us as we build a community of healthy men and women enjoying lasting levels of real health and vitality. If you're currently feeling frustrated with pain, flat, or fed up with aging faster than you actually are, you're invited to join us each and every week here on the Real Longevity Podcast. Welcome to the Real Longevity family and get ready to live a life you truly love. Fitness practitioner Mike Hendricks, and today we have another outstanding, uplifting and informative episode for you. I'd like to welcome all first-time listeners to the podcast, and be sure to stay to the end of the show where I will share my connections and contact links so you can connect with me and the Real Longevity podcast community. I hope you're well wherever you are tuning in throughout the world. It's a pleasure to have you here once again. And today we're going to be having a conversation that may upset a few people, because the title of today's show is about healthy eating, a massive topic, one that causes a lot of people a lot of confusion. But the title of today's podcast is simply put, Stop Eating Healthy and Start Eating Right. Stop eating healthy and start eating right. Now, before you think I've gone completely off the rails and gone mad when I say stop eating healthy, I want you to hear me out, because what I'm going to share with you today is something that's generally changed the life of people that I work with when I'm getting them to reframe the idea of what healthy eating is. Healthy eating, as it's sold to us by the fitness and wellness industry, might actually be the reason why so many people, especially over the age of 45, 50s, going older, are still struggling with their weight, still feeling foggy, flat. No matter how many salads or healthy fat diets that they eat, they still can't seem to move forward. So if you've ever followed a healthy diet, air quotes, healthy, and you've done it to the letter, you've done it meticulously, and still felt rubbish, still felt like you're not shifting in terms of moving towards your goals, whether that's managing your weight, getting it down, or feeling more energized, this episode is what you have been looking for. So let's jump in. As I said, today we're talking about stop eating healthy, start eating right. So here's the trap that a lot of people fall into when it comes to healthy eating. The thing about healthy eating is that it's, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, it's just so confusing. There are so many different things and so many different metrics and so many different variables that we have to think about. And the focus often is heavily weighted towards what you shouldn't eat. Don't eat this, don't eat that, cut the carbs, avoid the fat, don't eat after 6, ditch the dairy, go gluten-free, count every calorie, try fasting, don't fast. I could go on and on, but I'm sure you're understanding what I'm talking about here. Every week there's a new study, and I like to read studies. You've heard me refer to studies before, because a lot of what we talk about here on the Real Longevity Podcast is science and evidence-based. But every week there's some new expert, there's some new superfood, there's some new bad guy, there's some new good guy. And after a while, it becomes very, very confusing. And for many intelligent adults who make up this community, because these guys are clever, there's no denying that, it just becomes noise to the end user. And I'm sure that's something that you can agree with. It comes contradictory, because for every argument to go right, there's an argument to go left. It just becomes overwhelming. And I say it just ends up being noise. So what do people often do when something's noisy or they can't understand things or it's overwhelming? Well, we just tune out, don't we? And that's often what happens with a lot of the information that's out there. People just kind of switch this. And I see this all the time with the people I've worked with. They've tried Slimming World, they've tried Weight Watchers, they've tried the 5-2 diet, keto, paleo, whatever on the list, no doubt they have tried it. And each time you see the same short-term gains, but then things revert to type, it stops working, and they feel like they failed, and they feel like they need to start the whole thing, the whole process again, and it's exhausting. And it's just this hamster wheel that they get fed up of. And the deeper problem, which I'll share with you now, is most of the advice that people are being offered and being told to apply is not for people of our age category. So I'm talking about people typically over the age of 45, 50, 60 plus. It's not designed really for them. You probably recognize now that you've reached a certain point in your life that your relationship with food changes, and it's in changes in important ways that you need to recognize as well. Your insulin sensitivity is something that is important to understand. Gut microbiome changes, your hormone changes, estrogen changes, testosterone, thyroid, these all shift significantly, and they affect how your metabolism functions and how you feel and how you interact with your food. So what worked for you nutritionally a few years ago, maybe in your 20s and 30s, may not be the same way it works for you now. So when it comes to healthy eating, that as a concept doesn't account for that. Yeah. So when we're told to eat these foods, they're not looking at that big picture and those variables that we just talked about. It doesn't account for and I'm pointing at you directly now, it doesn't account for your specific body type, your stress levels, your daily activities and things that you deal with in your life on a daily basis. It doesn't account for your sleep quality, your gut health, or your relationship, past and present, with food. It just hands out a list and says, these are good, these are good, these are bad, stay away from these. So it doesn't really factor the individual into account. So that's not eating right, it's eating healthy. And this is why we specifically spoke about eating right. And I chose that specifically when it comes to one of the protocols and the principles and the values on the Real Rejuvenation program. The second step in the Real Rejuvenation program is all about eating right for energy. And I choose that word right deliberately over the word eating healthy, because right is personal. It's specific to you and it accounts for how you are and how your body responds to different foods. When you eat right, you're eating for yourself and the relationship with you as a whole. Eating right for energy means asking different set of questions. It's not just about what food is healthy and perhaps what food is not healthy. It's not about which food is on the approval list or which isn't on the approval list. It's questions such as, does this food give me sustained energy, or does it give me a spike and a crash? Does this way of eating fit my actual life, or does it only work when everything is, air quotes, perfect? How do I feel maybe an hour or so after I've eaten? Do I feel alert? Do I feel satisfied? Or do I feel sluggish and looking for something sweet? These are some of the universal truths that almost every person who's getting on over the age of 45, 50, still in the prime of their life, but they've been told to eat like they were maybe when they're in their teens, 20s or 30s. And to maintain that muscle mass, you need to be thinking, you've heard me speak about before, which is very important. You need to be thinking about all these things, making sure that we get adequate protein that's going to help us keep satisfied and maintain good muscle mass. Eating in a way that keeps blood sugar relatively stable throughout the day, because we know that blood sugar and blood variables, rapid variables in blood sugar, then can cause crashes, and they're the biggest contributor to things such as brain fog and feeling fatigue. Staying well hydrated. We know that many of us don't drink enough water. So simple, but very overlooked when it comes to a key factor when it comes to our nutrition and our diet and eating right. Eating foods that are close to nature. We've spoken about this before. Not because they're clean, but because your gut bacteria, your mitochondria run better on real food rather than processed foods. These are all, broad truths that we know that we should be doing, but for many of us, we don't apply it. We don't factor that in because we're not looking at it, most cases, from an individual point of view. We're just talking and looking at it from what the experts say, is saying that food's bad, that food's good, so we should be eating this. But we need to start thinking about real nutrition and eating right for us. Real Rejuvenation approaches that in much more detail, and I'll leave some information if you'd like to find out more about that program. The program encourages you to understand yourself better, so you know what real food is for you, and you can really access real rejuvenation, real vitality, real health, real strength, real well-being, real mental clarity, because you're eating the right food for you. Now, what you're probably asking now, said, okay, Mike, that's all good. So how do I go about eating right? Don't want to eat healthy. How do I go about eating right? Well, here are 4 steps, practical steps that you can start this week, if you like. It's not going to cost you anything, but they're going to start making inroads for you getting the benefits of stop eating healthily and start eating right. So, step number 1, stop following a diet and start following your energy. You hear me say that? Stop following diets and start eating right to follow what's working well for your energy. Now, when I use the word diet, you've heard me say this before. The diet in the health and wellness and the health and fitness space is often seen as something where you're restricting food. But when I use the word diet, I want to think about just eating behaviors or eating practices. So if you're following a traditional diet, I want you to stop doing that and start following a diet or eating practices or eating behaviors that's going to support your energy. So for the next 7 days, what I want you to do is to keep a simple food journal or food diary, whatever you want to call it. I'm not talking about counting calories. I'm talking about something that's going to track your energy. You're going to monitor how you feel. So each main meal, you're going to simply score it on a scale of 1 to 5. How do you feel an hour or so later? So we'll take a little bit of concentration and bringing awareness to what you're eating. But how do you feel? Monitor that. Are you feeling clear-headed or are you foggy? Are you feeling tired? Do you feel satisfied? Or are you reaching for something sweet within the hour? This is a simple practice I get my clients to do, and you're going to practice it now. But most people that discover that within that 7-day period, certain foods which might be perfectly or on the appearance seem healthy by mainstream or the expert standards, they're constantly and consistently taxing them or robbing them of energy. And those foods are not ideal for them. So when you check in and look and see and ask yourself those questions after you've eaten certain foods, your body's going to communicate with you and you're going to learn a lot more about how you feel and your relationship with those foods. As I say, 7 days, take a note, ask yourself those questions. How are you feeling after you've eaten? Step number 2, prioritize protein at every meal. Now we know that after 45, muscle loss, or sarcopenia to give its correct name, is a real and significant concern for many people. And it's one of the primary drivers of people losing muscle for a long period of time as they get older because they're not eating the right amount of protein. The general recommendation, so I'm going to give you a little quick math insight here, is 1.2 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. And that's for active adults over the age of 45, 50 and older. So practically speaking, what this means is including a good quality protein source at every single meal. So we're talking about things such as chickens, fish, eggs, meats, Greek yogurts, quality protein powders, if that's something that you can access. Yep. So these are things that you need to consider with each meal, making sure that you're not really shortchanging yourself when it comes to protein and you're getting the right amount of protein in. When your meals are anchored in protein, you stay fuller for longer, your blood sugar is easily regulated, it's more stable, you have better energy throughout the afternoon, and your activity in protecting your muscle mass, which is one of the most powerful predictors of long-term health and mobility, is supported. So you need to make sure that you're prioritizing protein with each meal. So that's step number 2. Step number 3, eat enough, especially throughout breakfast time. Now I say breakfast time. Breakfast time is often seen as a key meal, but some people that don't eat breakfast, myself included, I don't always eat breakfast. But this sounds too simple, but you need to make sure that you're fueling your body sufficiently. Don't undereat. We're not asking you to scrimp and scrape here or withdraw or keep food away from you for a long period of time. You want to be eating the right amount of food. And one of the key things that people do is they undereat. They don't give the body the right amount of calories. So you need to make sure that you're doing your best to eat the right amount of food. So look at your eating patterns throughout the day. Look at your practices and your behaviors throughout the day. Are you eating the right amount of food on a regular basis? Eating a proper breakfast can help you to make sure you're getting the right amount of calories in throughout the day. If you're not eating a breakfast like myself on occasion, make sure that you are throughout your day fueling your body accordingly. So make sure that you're eating enough food on a regular basis. You'll have better energy, you won't be thinking about food, you'll be in a better mood, you'll have better focus, and you'll be far less likely. What a lot of people do is they don't eat sufficiently throughout the day, and then when it comes to eating on an evening time, they just go all in and eat way too much. But by that time, you're not going to utilize those calories maybe as effectively as if you would spread them throughout the day. Now, obviously, this is very individual, but what we're encouraging to consider here is that step number 3, that you eat enough. So you're not starving yourself or withdrawing food, restricting throughout the day, and you're making sure that your body's getting the right amount of food so you can focus, function well throughout your day. And then step 4, before you subtract, make sure you add. Now, you've often heard me say the opposite to this because we are on a journey of maybe focusing on unlearning things that we've heard in the fitness and well-being space so we can create space for things that we need and are going to serve us well. But in this instance, what I'm saying to you is add before you subtract. Now, the conventional diet mindset is all about restriction, what you're cutting out, and that creates that scarcity mindset around food, and that both psychologically can be draining and practically, long-term, definitely unsustainable. Instead, what we think about is what you can add this week. Add an extra portion of vegetables, organic, ideally. Add an extra portion of water, so you're keeping yourself hydrated. Add some additional sources of protein like oily fish twice this week, so that's going to help with brain health and joint health. And add a handful of nuts to your afternoon snack. Maybe if you're feeling a bit like you want something sweet. When you're focusing on adding for nourishment rather than removing from pleasure, your relationship with food shifts. It becomes something that you do for yourself. So I want you to start to kind of switch it up when it comes to healthy concept and eating right, and not just thinking about, right, I can't have this, I can't have that, I can't have this. That's what a lot of people do, and that's why they will see short-term progress, but long-term it's not sustainable. So I want you to think about what you can start to do to change your relationship with food and start adding things in as opposed to having that restrictive mindset. So what we've been talking about today, in summary, we've unpacked, air quotes, healthy eating, a concept that really, in my experience, when working with thousands of people over the years, doesn't really work for them long term. But when we start shifting the mindset about thinking about food in a more positive way, more supportive way, and eating right as opposed to healthy eating, it becomes easier for us to follow. And we've explored what eating right for energy is. We talked about the Real Rejuvenation program. That's the second step that we look at when we are moving through the Real Rejuvenation program. Remember, we talk about realizing and taking responsibility. We talk about eating right for energy. We talk about the right type of exercise activity. And we talk about loving and longevity. That's the real wheel, if you like. So, 1, we said keep an energy journal. These are your steps that you're going to look at doing and completing that's going to help you to start eating right for energy, eating right for you. Keep an energy journal. How do you feel when you eat those foods? Number 2, prioritize protein. Number 3, eat enough. Make sure you're getting enough to help sustain focus and function throughout the day. And 4, add before you subtract. Build in nourishment rather than think about restricting out pleasure foods that you may have done before in the past. And remember, it's not about perfection when it comes to your diet and nutrition. It's all about progress. It's about eating in a way that's genuinely sustainable for you. That's what we're talking about. Eat in right. Now, I trust you found today's episode insightful on the Real Longevity podcast. And if you have, I'd really appreciate if you would connect with us in the Real Longevity podcast community. I'm going to leave the connection link in the show notes so you can reach out to us completely free. You can meet wonderful people like you who are all on this journey of elevating self through eating, exercising, and understanding themselves better so they can live a long, rejuvenated, vital, healthy life as we continue on this journey. And if you're ready to have a real personal conversation about your nutrition and energy, I'd love to hear from you directly. I'll leave a link where you can arrange time to speak with myself, and we can talk about you, where you are in your journey, and how we can potentially work together to give you the support that you require to give you that lasting energy, take you from where you are now, feeling maybe flat, frustrated, and fed up, to feeling and finding more freedom through fitness as you learn about yourself and the best way to move forward. All my connection details will be left in the show notes. So if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, you can find me under Mike Hendricks. If you want to connect with me on Facebook, you can find me under Mike Bobby Hendricks on Instagram. It's the Holistic Coach Mike. And same again, if you'd like to subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can get bonus videos, you can connect with me there. Okay, until next time, appreciate you joining in. Remember, be well, be wise, be cool, be calm, and keep it real. Blessings and chi, it is done.